Okay. Welcome everyone to the July 2015 meeting of the Stamping and Dies Technical Group. We're just going to move forward with a panel discussion, especially since our panelists have been so kind as to loan as much time as they could this afternoon. First of all, with these instructions, have the meeting outline going through, and as of right now, everyone except the panelists should be muted. So we need to unmute Julia Starr and Jill Cole's phone. And as a test thing, at any time you can use the raise hand button. It is at the bottom of the guest list of participants. So for example, I pressed it and there's a little hand icon that appears next to the name. Then I can raise or lower the hand. So.
What was your question, Brianne?
That was an example. And yeah, if I don't catch the question, Eric will definitely catch it. So I'd like to start by introducing the panelists that could come today. Unfortunately, Dr. Jill Chen is not available at the moment, but I will, it'll be a little less confusing because we only have one Jill on the line. And so start with Jill Cole. She is a graduate of Kent State University with her bachelor's degree in foreign language education. It doesn't sound like technology yet. She worked in education initially, but she switched to international manufacturing when Ohio's education laws changed and she was required to get a master's degree to continue. So with her background, Jill is fluent in Spanish and French. She's been working in manufacturing for 16 years, selling electrical equipment, and does a lot in international markets. Currently, she is a sales manager for a company that was acquired by Emerson Network Power a couple of years ago. And a lot of the salespeople she works with are based in other countries, and she visits them on quite a few occasions during the year. Let's see, it was about a year and a half ago, she started at St. Petersburg College to get a 2+2 degree in electronics engineering. So she should be getting her associate degree sometime in the near future, and is interested in getting her bachelor's degree. So that this will improve, she decided to go back to improve her technology credibility within her job. And I know so much about Jill because we are cousins. We're 18 years apart, actually, and you might guess who's older, especially since I'm in my 20s. And it's really exciting to have a second engineer in the family now. Second panelist, Julia Starr, will graduate with her bachelor's in mechanical engineering from University of Toledo in Ohio this December. So for 4 semesters, she's worked co-op with Dana Holdings. They make rear ends for automotive. And she originally worked as a metallurgical analyst, and just recently she applied and got a new position within Dana in the project engineering department. And this is a job that can continue beyond her graduation place. So Julia and I graduated from the same high school in a little town in Northeast Ohio, and we knew of each other. We weren't close friends or anything, and actually I didn't even know she was in mechanical engineering until a year or two ago. So just like me, her interest in manufacturing, specifically automotive manufacturing, started at home helping her dad repair the family's cars. And so everyone else could, can greet them kindly through chat, I guess, since I have muted you. And panelists could say welcome.
Hey, Brianne, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Julia.
Okay, fantastic.
That's great. So to start off, I'd like each of us to give a quick description of how you feel your own workplace handles diversity. especially not being traditional age and or traditional gender.
Julia, do you want to start off by answering that question, and then I'll follow?
Okay. I think Dana does a great job of accommodating various backgrounds and, just strengths, I suppose. They are, a global company. They have to deal with, many different countries and, employ different types of people, even just within my, at my location of Dana. I think they've done a great job to, make sure that they have a diverse group of people working in all the departments.
That's great.
Okay,
Jill.
I also agree that working for Emerson has been a great experience. They definitely take time to put a lot of thought into how they're going to develop the talent within the organization, whether it be male or female, by offering tuition reimbursement. We're very fortunate in that our sales leadership and factory is all located under one roof here in Clearwater, Florida, and the just at the factory level, the engineers here are really keen on sharing their knowledge with the people that are interested in that. And when I announced I was going back to school to be an engineer, they were extremely excited about it, and I started getting a lot of advice. So it's definitely a corporate policy working for a major corporation, but I also see on the local level where people are extremely supportive of anybody, not just women, but of anybody that is willing to put the blood, sweat, and tears in to improve themselves.
Yep. And then kind of is the different part in it for me myself. I work for North Urchin Machining and Fabricating. And it's a small family business. In one respect, I can say it's not a very diverse company, but it's very hard when it's 3 people working in the shop. I mean, we're all from the same family. However, it's still better than a lot of other area shops that we deal with because, my dad owns the company, and he'd be more of the traditional age of an engineer, or maybe a tiny bit younger. But then there's 2 younger women that are working under him, and that's been a really good experience. But you don't really need to manage diversity when it's not really diverse because we can't take on a number of employees yet. So for the next question, I reference part of what I had to take for college and went into a career management textbook, which had its own chapter on women and diversity in the workplace. So one of the big idea questions to ask everyone and ask ourselves is, first of all, do you believe that the work group or organization that is diverse is more effective than the group that's all the same within an organization? Why or why not is that the case?
Do you want me to go ahead and go first?
Go ahead, Julia.
Okay. I think the diversity in any group doing, anything, not even just engineering-wise, is crucial. Even just different parts of the world think of things in a different fashion. And it all depends on your end game, too. If everybody has the same outlook at the end, it's important to see where your values of a project lie. Even just, I like to think of like culturally being diverse as well as being like men and women, and even age-wise. Yeah.
Okay.
As far as being a culturally culturally diverse workplace, it's definitely more effective when you've got an excellent mix of, sex and racial and ethnic composition. When you have a homogeneous group like that, everybody tends to have that tunnel vision because they all think the same way and they think in the same manner. So maybe X, Y, and Z situation comes up and they can react well because that's the way that they've always reacted in the past. But when you have a different, stimuli, I guess you could say, which can happen instantaneously in business. You have to have that reaction time. You have to be able to innovate in order to stay relevant in business. And so when you've got a bunch of thinkers that think the same way, that greatly reduces the probability of being innovative and being reactive, because when you've got a bunch of group of the same people, they tend to like being the same people, and they're resistant to change. So I think that in order to remain relevant in business and be reactive to change, you have to have a mix of people and different ideas and thoughts.
Yeah, so definitely the reason it's more effective that I'm hearing from these opinions is that more able to adapt to different situations, have a bigger knowledge and experience base to solve problems. That can also then increase to more competitiveness. And to put it plain and simple, even in America itself, we are becoming a more diverse group, and we're catering to more of a diverse group. So you want to serve the population with a group that would be able to figure out and I lost my train of thought. I'm sorry. But be able to cater to a group that is equally or more diverse. If you have everyone's the same, you're not going to please everyone you're catering to put it simply.
Good point.
Yeah.
Right, yeah,
I think
that's
Jill
a
made a great point. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Julia.
I think that Jill made a great point saying, they're resistive to change. I think that it gets, when you're in a group and you're all the same, you kind of get scared to stick your neck out and be different. Like when you're surrounded by people who are all different than you, it's a lot easier to just kind of speak, openly, because everyone has a different idea, so you feel more able to and not be criticized.
Yeah,
Yes,
because there might
that's
be a great reason why that other group feels a different way. Like prime example, in the electrical industry, you have your standards based on surge protection that have been written by the IEEE. The IEEE is very clear about this scenario, that scenario, and that scenario in the environment that would cause transient voltage and in how to protect your electrical system from that type of power disturbance. The European standards by the IEC are they're not completely different, but when it comes to like 2 or 3 really hot topic issues about about how lightning strikes propagate in an electrical system through the ground, and just related to high current, they have a completely different belief system about that than we do, and Americans tend to take a look at that difference in philosophy and say, well, that's wrong. We're the right ones. But there really isn't any right or wrong. It's just a matter of what experiences have led the IEC to come to those points, to their standards versus the IEEE to come to our standards. And when you have the chance to read, like, why did they come to that point, it can probably help. It can help you to innovate a better product yourself that can serve a wider variety of audiences. And Brianne made a really great point too. Our customers are completely different, and so if business is based upon obviously having the right product to sell and one that's needed, but not only that, based even more so on relationship.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and that's great. To switch gears a bit, I want to go back to some of our own personal experiences. Who are the biggest influences that either guided you to enter the engineering field or have supported you during your career? So that depends on how far, we've gone in our careers. I guess I'll take the chance to go first, which it's a pretty simple answer that my dad has been a huge guidance for me into the field. I had a taste of self-employment and running own machine shop, even when I barely understood the technical parts of it. I still could see the independence of it, being available for, my dad was available for me and the rest of my family more. And, just the exciting nature of it. And then my dad was able to guide me a lot of the way, because he then, said, hey, to get into this, you have to be good in science, you have to be good in math, definitely look into this. This went through college, such as don't trust the college advisors, go to the head of your department. And so he's definitely guided me very well into engineering, gave me good reasons to join him in business, and hasn't left me hanging since. And so now he's also transitioning me into business leadership. And that's pretty exciting, even though it's a lot to be technically excellent and, run a business too. But yeah, there are other people on the side too that have been good, because teachers along the way, I can think of one in particular would be the advanced placement teacher within middle school. She was very encouraging of, knew that I liked this field, knew that I wanted to go. It strengthened my math and my science skills, and looking back, she was the most encouraging when other teachers are still going, oh, you do so well. And one of the faults can be if you see someone doing super well, all of a sudden people, like a lot of people that I meet automatically think, you're really good, you'd be really good for my job. So that can really end up in a lot of different suggestions, to put it shortly. Yeah, Julia?
Okay. I think throughout, I guess, early education, I mean, easily my father has guided me towards it. He actually didn't go to college. However, he works at Kennametal. They make precision machining components. He's always, kept my interest with, working on cars with him, and he would, vividly explain, how they made things, or how to put things back together. He just always kept that curiosity alive for me. I often went to after-school programs and things for math and science-based materials, I guess. In college, I started off in pharmacy school. I kind of took experience, being there and realizing that I should have followed what I really wanted to do in the first place. I didn't necessarily need anybody to tell me that, but it just took the time and the experience to realize my heart was somewhere else. I don't know, as far as being here at Dana, I had the opportunity to do something that wasn't a traditional mechanical engineering, position. And, they did, like my supervisor pushed me, to look outside of the department if it wasn't something that I was willing to pursue, long term. And I appreciated that. She helped me a lot to make decisions as far as, I'm going to begin my career in the product division instead of staying where I was as a co-op. And I was offered the position in that department also. I don't know. It takes a lot of people to get your mind made up, I think. It's not going to ever be just one person for me, but I don't know.
That is true.
Well, I've been kind of a late bloomer coming to the decision to pursue a degree in engineering, and most of my youth was spent absolutely convinced that I was going to be a high school Spanish and French teacher. All of my student teaching experiences, I got green lights. I really thought that that's what I was going to do. And then I guess my first biggest influence was a big thank you to the Ohio State Board of Education for mandating that that my first group of people, in order to teach in a public school, would have had to have had their master's degree. And I had graduated with 175 credit hours from Kent State. Technically, in credit hours, I had a master. I was qualified to teach 2 subjects, and that was not good enough for them because I didn't actually have a master's degree on paper. So I was not going to devalue a master's degree and obtaining it at the age of 25 to make under $40,000 a year, as much as committed to teaching as I was. And 2, at 23, 24, I really was not. I worked a couple jobs to put myself through school. Really wasn't in a position to do anything else. So I went with the easiest thing. My backup plan was the foreign languages. I figured I could start a career in international business or sales if teaching didn't work out, and thank goodness I did that, because that's exactly what happened. I just happened to be placed in a transformer maintenance company in Akron, S.D. Myers. They're still there, and as a temp in their field services division. When they found out that I spoke multiple languages, they decided to groom me as international sales support, and that eventually turned into full-fledged international sales position, and that was the start of my 15-year career. So, while we do have a bunch of engineers in the family, I wasn't open to any influences that my father may have given me or anybody else, like Uncle Brian, or we've got engineers all over. I just wasn't open to it then. But my interest started to get piqued because I would be support for the engineers who are working with Latin American customers or, French-speaking customers in Africa or France. French-Canadian, my first, boss for international sales was French-Canadian. And so I had to translate what these people were trying to convey to the customers about answering their questions about the product. And it just piqued my interest. So my influences were more mentors that were industry leaders that were willing to share their information with me. And finally, after we moved to Florida, and I've spent several years working for APT, which is now part of Emerson, I was fortunate enough here to have a very strong industry leader that were experts on surge protection in their niche market, and they were willing to share their information. My last manager was an electrical engineer. He saw potential in me, and he encouraged me to go back to school.
Okay. So, yeah, as you can see, it's hard to streamline everyone onto the same road when the people who are right here in the industry had so many winding, twisting roads usually to make it here. But that doesn't mean we're not going to try to get them in. So I'm gonna do this one quickly, especially with the amount of time on each question. And this is a theory that was in the same career management book. And I just want everyone to think of it for food for thought, that women and minorities, they end up, even though they can have the same education, the same amount of experience within a workplace, they can experience fewer opportunities by a lack of resources and having challenges that are more social, you could say, than purely educational or technical, such as unsatisfactory supportive relationships because they can't find people like them, restricted development opportunities, you could say more apt to get into a dead-end position, restricted job power because someone stops listening to them, or the person hired doesn't want to expand the authority that they can give to the person because, someone might not listen to them. Peripheral career path assignments. The stupidest one might be, hey, I need you to get the coffee. I need you to take your time out. Being their tasks actually jumped up with other things that do not contribute to advancement that they'd want to go into. And then also exclusion from informal networks, not being able to meet up with people that are similar work with them. They don't carry out business on the golf course. They don't meet up at the bar afterward. So those can be, now this is only a theory, it's not going to apply to everyone, but you can use this as some food for thought. Any quick comments from panel?
I'm going to weigh in with one if you don't mind me interrupting, Brianne. On this lost opportunities theory that you mentioned, there's a very interesting situation happened at a company that I used to work at. So full disclaimer, I don't work at this company anymore. But we actually were turning away very good female applicants, or they were somehow weighting them less in their hiring process because they were convinced that these young ladies would be so high potential that we wouldn't be able to keep them very long. Ironic. It's ironic, I know, but it was, wow, this girl's awesome. We could bring her into our team and imagine what she could do for us. And then someone would pipe in and say, yeah, but after a while, I don't think we'd be able to keep her very long because
So no one gets them the chance.
Yeah, right. So it was strange to witness that, but it was and it was again what you mentioned earlier, Jill, about the whole corporate culture. That was an organization that didn't have this kind of growth mentality and didn't think that they themselves, making a better person in the world and helping that person grow, if we keep them interested in their job, well, of course they're going to want to stay. And if we treat them well and let them grow, they're going to like it here, so they're going to stay. Instead, they had the exact opposite. If we bring this person in and give them a little bit of growth, they're going to run away from home and we'll never see them again. And that was another strange thing to see, that they knew that minorities and underrepresented minority classes were advantageous to hire, but in the meantime they're like, well, we can't hire them because we couldn't possibly keep them.
What they're saying is that they don't want to pay them the same amount of the guys that they've got there, and so they'd rather, you know what I'm saying? It's like, well, it's like in the middle that they're not going to give those people equal standing. That's
or
a
maybe
shame.
they're going to lose some to motherhood.
Exactly. Fortunately, that didn't come up very often when we were hiring at that particular company. But it was strange because that company was led, all of the in that particular location, the local office general manager and her, I would say 2 or 3 levels down, were predominantly women leaders, and all of us in the rank and file were the guys. And when we were hiring entry-level people, they're like, we're just going to hire another dude, and it was ladies who were at the leadership role. So there might have been some other psychological reasons behind that, but I don't want to second guess.
I was going to say
That's fine.
that spins off into a whole different discussion about how women need to learn how to support other women and not eat their young.
Yeah.
So we all move forward.
Yeah, that's a weakness within this field right now, in all honesty. Okay, so we're going to do a couple more prepared questions. I guess, yes, we will. Instead, we're going to wait on that question from Doug King. Just as the quick thing, being someone who wouldn't be considered the traditional person in manufacturing in your job, in your workplace, what's something you really enjoy about it, and what's something, please make it quick, of what you dislike? That I could say this right now. We can dig up a lot of dirt in this conversation, so the push is to keep it positive. Okay. Anything, Jill?
Yeah, I mean, definitely one of the things that I've really enjoyed is the fact that my career path has been very untraditional coming through here, and I would just like to point out that one way that more women could be involved in an extremely technical profession, you know, that maybe relies more on field experience that a woman might not get, is to pursue a career path in sales and technical sales, because the compensation is extremely well. You get to build relationships with, you know, within your own company and with customers. You're providing a function that is needed. I mean, somebody has to sell the product so that production can build them. And I just, you know, when I talk to people that that are iffy about going into technical, you know, into a technical profession, you know, the whole foundation of that is the people in the trenches in the field that make things happen, but they need other people besides that. And you don't, just because you go to school for engineering doesn't mean that you're going to wind up in a oil refinery managing a bunch of electricians like what my dad did. You know, there are other avenues of using a technical degree that can be very, very lucrative and provide a lot of job satisfaction. So that's what I liked, is realizing that you don't have to be pigeonholed into one particular image of what you're supposed to be for that. Even though that particular type of person is so vital, you don't have to, not everybody has to be that person. And then on the flip side, I dislike the fact that I don't have as much field experience as the people that I really hold up as mentors and value. I wish that I had more opportunity, even now, even you know, to really go out and learn more about electrical code and maybe you know, follow an electrician around every day and see what they do. So you know, the very thing that I like about it, because I found my own niche in it, is also the thing that I don't like, because I hate being stupid. I would really like to know what the guys that do the hard jobs, what they do, their knowledge, because it's so important.
Yeah. Okay, and yeah, so I could definitely see how something can be double-sided like that. Did you think of something, Julia?
Not really. I'm not sure how to answer that. I do agree. Yeah, you can go ahead.
Yeah, I'll give my answer, and after that you can either pass or, you know, find something. Not a problem either way. I really like being the person that sticks out in the crowd when I'm meeting new people. I like that I'm not easily forgotten overall. Even at like national SME events, classic story is when my dad met up with the local chair of Northeast Ohio chapter in Cleveland, and both my dad and I had met this chairperson before. He's talking to my dad and him are talking like they don't really know each other. All of a sudden I walk up and I join my dad again, and the chairperson's like, "Oh, hi, Brianne. Oh, wait a second, it's Brian." So I do like that, even though that could become a curse later of they're not going to forget me. And something I dislike is the challenge I have in finding personal protective equipment. I am very small. I'm 5'1", 115. My shoes are hard to find. Like in college, I brought my own welding jacket. I brought my own welding helmet because it was just, you know, I usually have to bring my own gloves because it's just too much of a hassle to pick up what the default. Because all of a sudden it's like, oh, my size is borderline child labor size. Okay.
Yeah, try to find a set of welding gloves that isn't extra large.
Yeah. Yeah, finding anything smaller than extra large in welding gloves is quite hard. So let's see. I'll do the submitted question next. Actually, I have two total now. This is from Doug King. Says, I frequently speak at middle schools, high schools, and community colleges about engineering and manufacturing. What advice would your panelists give to girls in each of these age groups who might be interested in engineering? I'm going to bundle this with one other prepared question, which is, what do you say when you're trying to convince others to go into your field? because sometimes it can be a blanket statement that isn't as age specific. So go on the convincing route.
Okay. I feel that I guess the very first thing, you know, you have to convince them of that it's not as scary as you might think. You know, everyone thinks, you know, engineers, it's all math, it's all, you know, there's a whole lot of, you know, of social aspect to getting, you know, everything done throughout a project. There's a lot more than just the, you know, image of being, I'm a bookworm and I can do all these, you know, I don't know, all these crazy things. Yeah, you know, all these computations and that I'm stuck into one type of career. I had no idea, even after I switched to mechanical engineering, what a, you know, wide range of job or experience that I'd have when I got into an actual facility. I think encouraging people when they're younger to be curious about things and why things work the way they do, or you know, question it. It's really okay to ask, you know, even questions when it seems silly. Especially that works a lot for girls. I ask questions a ton, but it's okay. It makes me better to be an engineer because I do. Trying to convince someone to become an engineer. Oh dear. I feel like that's something that you have to hold close to yourself regardless, but it's just not as scary as it sounds, I think.
Okay. Yeah, and I don't think this question will come up anyway. This will kind of come into this. For reference, I actually hosted a group of college girls that are from more of a liberal arts college that didn't have technology in their department. So it's like there's no chance they're in engineering. And, you know, I asked them about, okay, so as me going into engineering, what is your opinion of this? And they're going, well, I'm really proud that you went into it. I just don't think it'd be for me. So I'd say culturally in the last few decades, we've moved past that being an engineer is not women's work. I think we've moved past that point. I think it's more to the point of it's very admirable to go into that field. But I'd say for a lot of people, it feels like I couldn't do it myself. And yeah, there might be all this pressure of, oh, you should have these technical hobbies. You see all these people that messed around with all these electronic stuff when they were kids. You know, why didn't you do that? And no, that's not a requirement. I mean, being very...
Jill explain her hobby.
Oh, my dad said, Jill, explain your hobby. It's not electronics.
No. Yeah, I wasn't exactly the kid that asked for the Radio Shack build your circuit for Christmas under the tree. That wasn't me.
Yeah, my dad's referencing her horses, which she still has, and very, very good rider as well. So yeah, I mean, yeah, you don't. That's definitely building off Julia's thing. I'll let Jill do some input.
Well, I think that most people really don't know what they want to do in middle school and high school. So I think that you have to start having that question with them about covering their bases so that by the time they get to late high school, college, whatever it is that they decide that they want to do, they will at least have the foundation to do it. So one thing I've got to give props to my dad for is that he insisted that I take 4 years of math. And I did take 3 years of science. And this was somebody that had already just was taking 2 foreign languages in high school on top of everything else. So as it turns out, several years down the road, I'm not so intimidated by pursuing this degree because I did have the math and a lot of it's coming back to me when I'm reviewing it. So my first piece of advice for the middle school and high schoolers is to tell them that life is dynamic, or put it into terms that they can understand. Life is dynamic. Things change. You never know what could possibly happen. And why not, while you have this opportunity, to focus on 100% on your school and just being young and being you, to focus on, taking as much as you can, establishing a foundation, and you might decide what you like and you don't like. And then late high school and college, I think that people need to have a real conversation with what, not to destroy a person's hopes and dreams, but, people need to have a real conversation about if you put an investment in your college and you're going to get into debt, $30,000, $50,000, $70,000, you better pick a career that's going to pay off on that investment. So don't go to school for freaking women's studies. Don't go to school to be an English major or a psychologist. We have enough of those. So you got to have that conversation with them about, by the end of high school and into college, before they jump in and they decide to go to school for basket weaving, and then, that completely takes them. They have no foundation. They're completely off to the side. They have no idea what they want to do. They're far away from the technical degree as possible at that point. Somebody needs to throw up some statistics of, like, if you get this job, this is what your annual salary is going to be. If you do this kind of a job, you're going to have this kind of an annual salary. And just make it real. Work is competitive these days, and you have to ask them, like, what is your end game? What do you want to do? You're young. It's going to change. But right now, what do you want to do? And if somebody is honest and says, you know what, I really, really, really just want to have a family and have children and be at home and dedicate my time to bettering the community, awesome. Awesome. The whole point of women's liberation was that all of us could make our own choices no matter what they are and not have to conform to some preconceived idea of who we are. But if you've got somebody that wants to have a nice living, that wants to balance, work with career, and they tell you that they want to go to school to be a marine biologist, well, we got enough of those too. So pick something that's going to actually bring an income in. And look at this. Engineering and technology happens to pay extremely well. Why don't you consider that? So I think we need to have a real conversation towards the end of youth going into college about the foundation that they are laying for the rest of their lives and the standard of living that they want to achieve.
Yeah. Some very good points,
amazing.
Jill. Yep. And
not that I just said what was on my mind, but I feel that way. I really feel that way. People need to have a real talk about the cost of college and what they pick.
Yep, and I guess some extra things, especially the gradient within middle school and high school to college, curiosity is really big. Let's see, one of the little things is just pulling back the veil a little bit from manufacturing and not just showing the top of the industry, what we're doing to break down borders. Those are great. We're doing really good in the breaking down the borders and pushing the limits area, but give them some information about everyday things. This is how much work it takes to do this simple item. You see this item around your house. What goes into this? I know just as a hobby, my dad loves picking up objects in like retail settings or around the house or whatever and looking at the signs of how it was produced. And so definitely there is a wow factor involved, but you also do have to bring it down to earth so that it can go, hey, this is actually what happens. There's a lot of people involved in this. This isn't, these are normal people, just like you're a normal person. And also, match, especially if you can do your homework, match the math level to especially middle school, high school. There's a lot of applicable things that really come in. A lot of engineering jobs, in all honesty, like you do need some calculus, you need some trig, but a lot of everyday things are lower math levels. Even though you need to have some knowledge of higher, it's, you can match the math levels. And I guess the third thing with part of the serious talk is even from middle school, I think this is just a general career thing. Keep in mind that your personal life, also keep your options open within your personal life, because you're not going to be able to do well in a career if your personal life is way too out of whack. But that's just a general career advice area. Um, anything else on this topic from our panelists? I see Eric has unmuted himself.
Yeah, I was going to throw one thing out there is that I really wish that when I was in middle school and high school that somebody would have told me that this is a creative job. And when you work as an engineer, I think I want to say I was listening to that book by Amanda Palmer, The Art of Asking, and she was talking about um, her experience as an artist, and that she spent a fair amount of her formative years looking down at her mother, who was a computer programmer, and saying, "Mother, I'm an artist, and you're just a computer programmer." And that it wasn't until very late in Amanda Palmer's personal life that she recognized that her mother, as a computer programmer, was an artist. That when people are doing computer programming, when you're an engineer, manufacturing engineer, design engineer, you're doing a creative job. You're doing it in the context of applied math or applied sciences, but it's a creative job, and it's unfortunate that when kids are in elementary school and they start getting that little bit of steering into what they want to take in middle school and what they want to take in high school and what they're going to do in college, and they're like, "Oh, you're so creative, and therefore why don't you major in this or why don't you major in that?" And because we lack certain amounts of creativity. Or Julia, your experiences being coming from communications and languages. Communication and languages is probably the biggest gap left by the way we currently streamline or mainstream people into engineering, is we end up with a lot of great engineers who are bad communicators.
Yep.
Right, and as soon as somebody's strong at writing, like my daughter's really good at writing, and I keep trying to tell her, it's like, "Honey, let's really consider. I know you want to be a journalist, right? But you could also go to a school where you might be able to get a minor in technical math or engineering, because there's solid jobs that pay really well straight out of college in technical writing." And that's where most of my journalism major friends ended up, because they couldn't get, there are no quote-unquote real journalism jobs, right? But there are certainly jobs in communications, graphic design, technical writing, instruction manuals.
Okay. I did have a book list, question list, but please just put it into chat this time. I'm starting to cut a little here and there. So if you do in the chat box for everyone, with conversations between Jill and Julia and I before the meeting, I have 3 books that are kind of relevant to the topic, and anyone else could put book recommendations into chat as well. So you can keep an eye out for those, copy, paste them somewhere on your sideboard on whatever device you're running. So let's see, we have a second incoming question that came in from Bob Strausser. And recently we were reviewing resumes and applications for a clerical position. It was an administrative assistant type position. We noticed that an applicant with several certifications in technical fields and some related experience was applying for a position that amounts to basically answering the phone and data entry. Assuming that the applicant didn't choose to leave the technical field because she just didn't like it, what thoughts do you have on how we can keep people engaged and thriving in technical fields? Jill and Julia haven't seen this question. I am going to put it in chat bar for them. I know I'm using chat like crazy at the moment, but it's okay. I hope you forgive me. So keeping people engaged and thriving when they had a little bit of technical experience and decided to leave, I guess one of the areas right now, which is kind of a workplace opinion, is pay attention to burnout and boredom. 2 separate things on this engagement and interest level that are going to make someone leave. And I think, a lot of tasks and job descriptions have boiled down so it's completely creative or completely grunt work or repetitive work. And especially within manufacturing at the moment, we are overloading people. So I could see especially burnout coming into play really fast of, I can't stand this anymore. There's too many hours. They're demanding too much from me. It could be demanding too much physically. It could be demanding too much creatively. But I feel like creating more balanced job descriptions might be a way to keep people in. Anyone else have an opinion?
I think in general, people honestly don't know how to go looking for a job. And I think that you know, when you're trying to look for a job, you want to get, you decide, I want that company, I would like to work for that company, and you apply for it. And you just hope that you get your foot in the door. I think that happens a lot because people just are not confident, or they don't have the time, or they feel like that they don't have the right connections to get the position that they really are qualified to do. So prime example, one of my direct reports is going out on maternity leave, and we've been interviewing a series of temps to take her place. And it's been interesting because one of the 4 temps was somebody that should never have gone through a temp agency to try to find a job. She was several levels above that. She should never have had to resort to it. And when we asked her, you know, why did you go through a temp agency to try to find an opportunity? She said, well, I didn't know where else to go. So I think that every once in a while you're going to have a fluke, like with somebody that's applying for a clerical position that has this technical background, maybe because they, you know, like they're trying to get in. Like how open is your company and inviting for applicants to submit what they're, you know, to submit? If you're forcing your people to go through a temp agency or online, but who knows if they're getting around, and like just be more open to you know, what's submitted to you. And maybe this person could start out, maybe she could do the clerical job. Maybe she's like more than capable of doing it, but maybe that clerical job grows into like a planner scheduler position later on. So I think it comes down to being really, really, you know, providing a very open avenue so that people see what is available that they might actually truly be qualified for, and not make them go through 5 different steps in order to find that out. And 2, you know, managers need to have a clear-cut development plan for their departments, the talent that they're going to need. They're going to and communicate that with HR. So when you get like the fluke resume that's in like that, HR can say, hey, look, I got this resume in. You know, we don't have a position open for this, but we've got one for that, and you can have a good discussion about it.
Okay. Anything you'd like to contribute, Julia?
I'm sorry, I dropped the call here. I just got back in. What was the question?
Oh, okay. It's okay. It is in the chat bar. This is an example from someone that brought in an applicant that's applying for an assistant position, but she has a lot of technical certifications and some related experience in technical things. But it's, what are your thoughts of keeping people who have this technical experience in the field, not moving on to something that is a less technical job? So you could say keeping people in these positions when they first got in.
Sometimes, even after you get experience as a woman,
So sorry, Julia. I think your internet is not letting you talk.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I don't know.
Might have to have you.
I'm not sure I can answer at this moment.
Okay. Yeah, Julia. Well, you can just listen in now since it's a little tougher.
I
at the moment,
apologize here.
okay?
I'm getting like snippets.
Yeah. You're forgiven, Julia.
Yeah, I'm just...
Okay, this is the end of the prepared questions. With the quick amount, there could be some attendee introductions, but I'm going to raise the stakes. You can only introduce yourself if you ask a question. Eric, you can open up the phone lines. Eric, if you're there. Eric?
Talk themselves.
All right. Okay, so you can ask the panel questions. You can introduce yourself only if you ask a question.
Hopefully our internet's not shut down.
I think our internet's okay. Eric has muted himself at the moment, but that might be for good reason. I especially see more female names on the roll call. You have any questions or comments for us? We'll okay, Eric. Yes, I see you talk enough.
Okay, this is Bob.
Hello, Bob.
Since I put that question in, I think I was taken from Jill's comments that it would be appropriate to not necessarily challenge, but to ask the applicant why they had these certifications and weren't trying to use them. Would you? How would the panel feel about that?
That is totally within bounds to ask that question. Definitely. I mean, you're as an employer, you want to know like what they're, if they're capable of doing that job right now, obviously, but then you want to know the background about them, if they are going to fit culturally into your organization, what their 5-year plan might be. And when somebody has a big transition in their life, career-wise, it is completely and totally fair game to ask why that happened. Yes.
Yeah, and you might end up with an answer you weren't expecting.
Yep. Okay.
I open up the floor and everyone's quiet. I said comments are also welcome. Uh-oh. Jill, do we have to chat more just to fill up dead airspace?
No, I'm good. That was not me.
Oh, no, I'm just saying, do we have to fill up dead airspace by talking more? Because especially you and I are pretty good at it.
Okay. Well, okay, to talk a little bit more about what Robert was, Robert's question. I just got, prior to this phone conference, I was in manager's training, corporate manager's training, and one of the things that they mentioned was rotating positions. Like when you target somebody that has high potential for your group or, potential high achiever, one of the keys of developing your personnel is to rotate them within your company so they get the big view picture of every portion of the company so that they can continue to advance and really make meaningful contributions. So this person with the clerical background, depending on what her excuse is as to why she got out of it, she might be totally content to do that clerical job, but maybe 4 or 5 years from now, there might be other opportunities for her to be rotated in other positions. I thought that was really interesting because I've been rotated around in the 10 years that I've worked for APT to several different positions to grow them, or, there was a gap that needed to be filled. And at the time, I didn't understand, a couple of times I didn't understand the value of rotating your personnel, but I really see how that can, the more people that you have in your company that have the big picture of what you do, the better their contribution is going to be.
I think everybody uses Amazon for, lots of stuff you can get from there.
Okay.
All right, well, thank
Sandy,
you so much for calling back,
your
your
audio's feeding over the meeting. I don't know if you can hear us, Sandy. Ah, thank you. Whoever muted her, thank you very much. So Doug, you were the second person who sent in the question. Do you feel like your question was well answered?
Yeah, I think so. Nothing really surprising, although I do like what they said about being curious about the way things are. What I've come across with a lot of girls is that they've lacked some of the typically male-centric developmental games and activities growing up. Boys will play with Legos and construction sets and things like that, and a lot of times girls haven't had that experience. And so I've heard
I had that
problem
experience.
when you're older as engineers. Can you guys comment on that?
Well, just tell them you weren't usual.
Oh, according to my dad, I was not usual. Yeah, and I mean, there's definitely many backgrounds of why women go into this field, and I guess you also have to make the connection of the first women, the first group of women that come into technical degrees and in a very male-centered environment is because simply they work with men better. You know, there are types of people who work with the opposite gender better in everyday situations than their same gender. And yeah, there's definitely a variety of backgrounds that come in. And let's see, where did that connect? Did it connect? Sorry.
I think it's also helpful, for all engineers, not just girls but boys too, to understand the wide variety of engineering positions there are out there once you become an engineer, anywhere from sales to testing to design, like even normally think about, to supervision of construction. There's such a wide variety, and I think a lot of students tend to have one idea of where they got it from, maybe from a relative or a friend that's an engineer or something they read or saw someplace. I think one of their jobs as engineers to try to cultivate new engineers is to explain all the different opportunities, just like your panelist suggested. So that's a good point.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, a lot of what these people will see, there is a lot from mass media, but around the dinner table is really big, especially if they are part of a family that has a large engineering background or technology or factory background too.
I love the comment. Was it Eric's comment that we was talking about the creative element of engineering, and that he wished that, was it Eric that commented?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. That I was silently saying to myself, amen, when you were talking about that, true, because most engineers that are design engineers are going to be responsible for project management from start to finish of a design project. So they're going to have to work with marketing. They're going to have to work with the packaging of the widget and the look of it, and they're instrumental in developing the message of what the sales force is going to convey to the audience. And there's our marketing group is actually ran by the engineers here, because you have to be technically correct when you're presenting marketing material, but then, you also have to have that creative aspect. And you can tell that some engineers are a little bit more predispositioned to just doing regular traditional, quote, engineering work, whereas others have a more creative part of that project management and development phase. But it's true. I mean, it is a creative project. You're basically creating something from nothing, and then you're having to drive it through the whole development scale until it's finally ready to give to the consumer. So well said, Eric, because it is a creative job. Good for you for saying it.
Yeah, and it's very, yes. Oh.
I was just thanking her because I've been trying to convince my daughters of that that they can definitely channel their creativity in and through engineering. And I've been trying to impress that upon the robotics team that I mentor as well.
Yeah. One of the cool, I did go to a Women in Engineering workshop that a different Kent State University hosted, which was they took a whole bunch of high school girls from the area and brought them to the tech department at Kent. And so they had some, showing them what's going on, but they also had a robotics lab where it was a different version of the Lego robotics programs, actually. So it had just boxes of components, the actual thing that you program, and then the computer program. It was drag and drop programming. So they could spend 45 minutes And then there was a whole bunch of instructions on different things you could do with these components. The program you would need to put in, you can make a timer, you can make a game, you can make a spinning item, but all these maps with the ideas and how to do it. So it was the girls who were in there could follow how-to instructions for something that they wanted to make, or they could go crazy and go on their own. And I really liked that as describing a technology field as a creative thing. I thought that was a really good embodiment to that.
I think they're emphasizing the communication aspect is also important for two reasons. First off, I don't mean to be sexist, but a lot of women are interested in communication and journalism and things like that, and I think that's a good point. Also, a lot of boys tend not to be, and they should be. I think somebody mentioned that there's a lot of engineers who don't communicate well, and that's something they really need to work on. And so when I talk with them, I mention that that's something that they have to develop, both written and verbal communication skills.
Well, and to that point, that's one of the reasons why I decided to go back to school, is because I recognized that there was a big gap in how information was relayed from engineering to sales. And most people in sales forces and like the mid-level to entry-level sales force, they're relationship people, they're not technical people, and they learn the business as they've gotten hired in, but then they lean on the engineers for support. Well, the engineers are really busy, and then, again, a lot of them aren't good teachers. So I'm hoping to fulfill that gap with my organization when I go back. Like, people have said, oh, wow, you want to be an engineer. I don't want to engineer anything. I want to be a better salesperson and selling what I sell, and then I want to be kind of the approachable person, I guess you could say, that translates what the engineers say into information that the sales team can digest, and who knows, maybe even pick their interest so that once their knowledge level is up to a certain point, they can have a real conversation with an engineer. And the more technically proficient your sales team is, your organization is, the better off the customers are. So I recognize that there was a gap in how people communicate technically, and I feel that as someone who's a late bloomer that decided this, several years into their career, it wasn't the first thing that I wanted to do, so I can kind of understand, like, ooh, technical stuff's scary, because I felt that way myself for a long time. I'm hoping that I can bridge that gap. More people need to be able to do that technical training within the organization.
Agreed. Thank you.
Great.
Right. That reinforces a point that popped into my head earlier. Is that the panel topic we took today was women in engineering, women in manufacturing, but truly, that this diversity, and that going to that early question about, is a more diverse workplace better? Certainly, it's diversity in more things than the normal labels that we might put upon it, right? And that it's, we focused on possibly a little bit of gender diversity, but of course there comes socioeconomic background, ethnic, religious, all sorts of different backgrounds, and just the way people are wired and how they think. Every technical organization benefits from someone who might have had a more of a liberal arts education coming into their organization and shaking things up. Just the same way that introducing a couple engineers to a liberal arts background type of information organization or pure business organization shakes that group up and broadens everyone's horizons in a way that they think. That's the diversity we ultimately need, and that's right now achievable by cherry picking through these diversity of those different groups or labels of people as we would normally group them.
Okay, I think we can tackle this question that just came in from Nikki. For anyone who's does not have chat open, has anyone worked with a person or been in a situation themselves where they're doing the work of an engineer without having the degree of an engineer? Does this happen at many companies, or is this an oddity? I'm curious as to where lines typically get drawn between engineers and designers, if there are lines at all. So I'm I can definitely say there are a lot of people that hold the title of engineer that don't have an engineering degree, especially depending on the pool of people in the workforce in the particular area.
Well, I can put a little bit of input in that.
Okay.
The
line between
before computer-aided design and drafting, when they had conventional draftsmen, one local company in particular, which I won't name, brought draftsmen into the design group, and unfortunately, it was because they were, I think, lower paid than an engineer. The company actually groomed them and used them in engineering and worked them into actually engineering product, when in actuality they were draftsmen. They had no engineering degrees. And they did attain the title of engineer or an engineering department in this company, but they had no formal engineering degrees. I don't know if that still happens, but this did happen in the past.
Yeah, so that does happen for a lot of different motivations, and some of them, unfortunately, can be paid. And engineers in design, I think it really depends on the company and the necessity and the individual talent. I have not seen any written dividing line between design and engineering.
As far as job titles, yeah, I agree.
I think it also depends on the complexity of the design too. Now, when we're talking about automotive design and some of the big three in Detroit, I think that they probably have
very specific.
Yes, those are engineers with degrees. But in some of the smaller companies that I've dealt with, I think the line's kind of blurred. But you have to remember too, a generation ago, you had guys that worked up from the plant floor that maybe had refresher courses in school in math and drafting and things like that, that started out in production, worked their way up into drafting and design, and became very, very good engineers, but they had no formal degree.
This is Doug. I would point out that, and I've worked with several of those people that came out of the shop floor and became good designers. There's a lot of things that engineers do that aren't really engineering per se. There's particularly in the nature of design, and the guys from the shop floor are very good at doing the design work. However, when it comes to optimizing something, making sure that the wall thickness was just right, they couldn't do that, and that had to go to an engineer.
Yeah.
Okay. What could some of the precision might be more aimed toward engineering. That might be one of the separations. Is when precision really comes in play.
If this answers the question, I just have a last interjection to put in on this of my own. Okay. This is Brian Roebuck. Let me see if I can keep my thought line straight on this. Out in my own shop, now and then when I'm doing a boring project, I pop a video into the TV and I can watch videos while I'm doing it. And one of my favorite ones is old advertisements that were from the time when I was a kid. And I have one that has about 1,000 toy advertisements on it that I remembered when I was a kid growing up. And I'm a firm believer that we have such neat toys now because guys my age, when they were kids, saw the junk that they put out and over-advertised it and said, boy, it would really great if I had a toy car that would do this or a remote control toy car that would do that. And they grew up and they became engineers or designers or inventors, and now we have these really neat toys. And my prediction for the future is getting women into design and engineering. They are right now looking at products aimed at men saying, and this has already happened, by the way, saying, this is a great thing, but boy, I wished it was tailored for a woman's size or a little more stylish or, and I think we're going to see a lot more of this, having women in engineering and design.
Yeah. I could definitely see that. All right. We're kind of on time, only going a little over. Thank you for all the people that were able to stay longer. Since sometimes certain people can only get an hour or 30 minutes off. We just had some closing remarks that I requested the panelists send in through email, and you can just look into these a little bit, and I think we've covered some of them too. And let's see, Julia, you still have a chance for a closing comment. I see your connection is probably better, quite possibly. Do you have any closing comments, Julia? I hear typing instead, so we might see it in chat. Or any closing comments from anyone else from this conversation? Okay. So, I guess, Eric, you can do kind of the wrap-ups and the thank yous for this event.
Oh, I get to do that? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for putting this together. I very much appreciate the effort you put in putting this meeting together, and I certainly I learn and I benefit from hearing other people's points of view. So thank you very much to Jill and to Julia for taking the lead and for participating in this workshop today. As usual, we will we'll possibly return to this topic sometime in the future, but we do normally follow some other educational or I should say topical focuses, and in July I believe that means we reset the clock back to our normal first month session, which will be something to do with die and stamping basics would be the topic of discussion for July's meeting. If
I think it's going to focus on tooling.
Tooling, okay, so we will be focusing on tooling.
Fundamentals. Yeah, you're going to be leading that with someone else, possibly. Oh, okay. Dad. Surprise!
Surprise, welcome.
Okay, so great time. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for listening to our opinions and our own crazy stories. We don't know everything.
Thank you very much, everyone.
We don't know everything, but we're happy we made it into technology. Or at least I am. I don't know if I can refer to myself in multiple persons on that.
Thank you, everyone.
Pleasure to meet all of you. Have a good rest of the day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you very much.